Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to another episode of News Dose, where I give you all of the latest gaming news. And out of nowhere, people online yesterday seemed to be talking about a possible Nintendo Switch 2. Yeah, at first I was a little bit confused because Nintendo didn't actually announce anything, so what exactly happened here, and why all of the sudden speculation on a Nintendo Switch 2? Well, we will go over that here in just a bit, and also Xbox Game Studios has been rapidly expanding over the last couple years, and one of their newest studios seems to be heading in the direction of a big AAA studio, so if you want all of the latest details on that, stay right where you are and we will talk about that as well. As always though, first let's go over some of the quick news, starting off with Cuphead. Yes, that's right, Cuphead is having a big year. Cuphead should be getting a new Netflix animated show here sometime soon, which is very cool with that art style which emulates old Disney cartoons. I could definitely see a lot of kids enjoying Cuphead the show, but now Cuphead surprisingly will be heading over to the PlayStation 4. I say surprisingly because a lot of people do associate Cuphead with Xbox, as it has been exclusive to the Xbox until last year when it was ported to the Switch. The thing is, Cuphead was never actually owned by Microsoft, so there was probably some kind of deal in place where it would remain under the Xbox umbrella for a period of time, which now looks to be over. This is great news though for PlayStation fans because Cuphead is without a doubt one of the best independent games of this entire generation. It really is that good, and if you like difficult run and gunners with an emphasis on platforming, then go check out Cuphead. You're not going to regret it as it plays just as good as it looks, and it's available today on the PlayStation 4. So good news there. And speaking of PlayStation, we got some new details on the PlayStation 5 timed console exclusive Project Athia. Project Athia, of course, is being developed by the Square Enix studio Luminous Studio, the developers behind Final Fantasy 15. This alone does make this title very exciting, and we should at the very least expect a gorgeous looking game. But outside of a small teaser trailer, not much is really known about this game so far. Square Enix did however give us some new small details regarding Project Athia, and that it will be an open world game that allows you to move around the world freely and will utilize PlayStation 5 features such as ray tracing. They did note that it would be near identical to the PC version. Nothing really too surprising here because I think most next generation games will take advantage of ray tracing, and I do believe that will be the most noticeable difference in terms of visuals for next generation consoles. As for it being open world, that could be really interesting based off the movement displayed in the teaser trailer. You kind of just see the protagonist gliding and jumping to mountain, and that could make for fast and fun exploration. For me, one of my favorite open world games this generation was Spider-Man, and that's because the exploration never felt like a chore, thanks to being able to glide building to building. So if Project Athia solves these open world issues of traveling and makes it a little bit more fun, that could be very exciting. Either way, I do think Project Athia is a game to keep an eye on. Hopefully we get some more gameplay of it here sometime soon. Also, we have some free games to talk about, or at least if you're signed up for Xbox Live Gold or PlayStation Plus. Both Sony and Microsoft announced their free games for the month of August, and if you have PlayStation Plus, you will be able to get Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 remastered on the PlayStation 4 starting today, and then on August 4th, you will be able to download Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout. Yeah, Call of Duty is a nice addition, so definitely go check that out. Meanwhile, Xbox games with gold will be getting Portal Knights, Override Mech City Brawl, MX Unleashed, and Red Faction 2. Nothing really major for Xbox here though, this seems to be the trend for games with gold, but Red Faction 2 is a good game and Portal Knights is pretty solid as well. Moving on, Phantasy Star Online 2 has officially been announced for Steam with a release date for August 5th. Yeah, that's right, in just a little over 1 week, you will be able to play the popular JRPG MMO on Steam. Of course, Phantasy Star Online 2 was brought over to the West earlier this year through a partnership with Sega and Xbox, and in fact it has been available on PC since it released on Xbox. The thing is, not everybody is too keen on the Windows 10 store, and this is very evident with both Halo the Master Chief Collection as well as Sea of Thieves having huge success on Steam since they released. In fact, Sea of Thieves sold more than 1 million copies on Steam in its first month alone, and considering that game was available on PC for 2 years already, that is just amazing. So now we are seeing Phantasy Star Online 2 head over to Steam, and it should get a lot more exposure on PC. Steam is just a behemoth of a platform on PC, and I don't think people realize just how much more exposure you can get on there compared to other PC platforms. It's just a store and service that people trust, and a lot of gamers like to keep their libraries in one place. Now, when this game does release on Steam on August 5th, it will be getting a new update for Episode 4, so you also have that to look forward to. As for Xbox, do you remember that game Recore? Yeah, the Xbox One exclusive title that released a few years ago that was inspired by games like Metroid? Well, Recore was a game that always had a very interesting premise, a pretty art design, good ideas, and likable characters. Recore just always had a lot of potential to be a great game, but it however did launch with several issues and bugs, and unfortunately was not a big success. Even then, this game has quite a few fans that would love to see a sequel, and for you, I have some bittersweet news. The co-creator Armature has expressed interest in making a sequel for Recore, or even allowing a completely new developer to try it out. They did note though that Microsoft owns the IP, so it's not really up to them, which isn't really a great sign because, like I said, Recore was not exactly a success. Xbox doesn't really have much reason to give this game a sequel, so I think if Armature truly does want to do a sequel, they would have to make a pretty good pitch. I for one though would like to see Xbox give this game another shot. It did have a lot of potential, and even though it did launch with several bugs and issues, they did fix them in a later update, and I think it has a lot of good qualities. As an example, the platforming in Recore is great. Its combat wasn't really my favorite because it revolves around a lock-on mechanic, but if they could improve that aspect, I'm thinking yeah, this could be a great game. Either way, nothing looks to be planned as of this moment, but I found it interesting that Armature does want to return to Recore once again. I will ask you though, would you like to see a Recore sequel in the future, and if so, what would you like to see them do? Let me know in the comments below. Now let's stay on topic of Xbox for just a moment. So Xbox has been expanding in recent years with several new studio acquisitions, and this has been widely covered across the game industry. There's even a rumor right now that they may acquire Warner Bros. Studios. One topic that hasn't been covered as much though is the fact that Xbox has been growing those game studios rapidly. So they're not just acquiring studios, but they're actually growing every studio they have as well. We have seen Obsidian Entertainment grow, and they're now working on their first big original AAA game, Avowed. The same can be said with Undead Labs and State of Decay 3, and Playground Games with Fable. Each one of these studios have been growing to make higher quality games and fully realize their dream games. This is why every time I talk about these studio acquisitions, I always like to say they have a lot of potential, and there is one studio in specific that really fits this bill. Compulsion Games, the developer behind Contrast and We Happy Few. We Happy Few in specific is a brilliant game in many ways. It's highly creative with its world building, atmosphere, and has a fantastic story. It however was plagued with technical issues and bugs, which unfortunately had a negative effect on its gameplay. Well, now that Microsoft has acquired them, they've become a bit of a dark horse for Xbox Game Studios. They now have access to more resources, have a bigger budget, and it's now official they too are seeing huge growth within the studio. Actually, they will be growing by around 50% over the next 18 months, which will place them at 90 developers, and they will be moving into a new studio that can house 120 developers. They will be moving into this studio in January of 2021, but what does this mean exactly? Well, if you pair this with some of their most recent job hires, they have been hiring AAA developers. So much like some of the other recent Xbox acquisitions, it appears that Compulsion Games is set to improve vastly when it comes to quality and maybe making a big AAA game for the Xbox Series X. That's not a guarantee until we get an official game announcement, as this is just speculation, but I actually don't think we're going to have to wait for too long. See, during the Xbox Game Showcase, head of Xbox Game Studios, Matt Booty, kind of teased that all of the Xbox Game Studios that did not show a game there would show what they're working on sometime this year. Well, there is an Xbox August event, so maybe we get some new information on what Compulsion Games is up to there. It's certainly possible. I guess we will have to wait and see, but for now, this growth within Compulsion Games is certainly exciting because I truly do think that they have a lot of potential. They just have to improve upon a few things. On to our last topic though. Seemingly out of nowhere, a lot of people was talking about the Nintendo Switch 2 yesterday. Yeah, at first I was a little bit confused because Nintendo didn't actually announce anything, so did somebody leak something? Well, not exactly. Rather, this seems to stem from a Kickstarter campaign that we talked about last week, Iodin, which is more or less a spiritual successor to Suikoden 2. The good news here is that the Kickstarter campaign has been very successful and they have already reached the stretch goal for console release. As mentioned in the Kickstarter, this means Iodin will be available on the Xbox One, Xbox Series X, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and Nintendo's next generation console. Yeah, you heard that right. They very clearly wrote that they would develop this game for a next generation Switch console. Though to be fair, if you scroll down just a little bit, it sounds like a what if scenario. This game will not be officially out until around 2023 at the earliest, so if there is a next generation Switch by then they would develop said game. This is the first time I think we have seen a direct comment like this by a developer though, and this has led to a lot of speculation about a possible Switch 2. Could Nintendo really put out a next generation console by 2023? Well, a lot of things could happen between now and then, but I would imagine we will see at least a Pro version of the Switch. A Pro Switch has been rumored for a long time now, and based off of Nintendo's comments, I do imagine we will see a more powerful Switch at some point. I don't know if that will matter in terms of this game though, because they would still have to support the original Switch, though that statement is still odd. Iodin should be able to run on the Switch, or at least you would think. It's even inspired by a game that was originally exclusive to the Switch, Octopath Traveler. They even say this in the Kickstarter and how Octopath showed that gamers still want these old classic JRPGs with a modern twist or something to that effect. So why are they not making this game for the Switch? Well, they say that it is too expensive to downgrade the visuals in order to make it run on the Switch. That's a bit surprising, but there it is. I'm not a developer, so I'm not at liberty to talk about porting costs, but I will say this. Big congrats to Iodin and the fans of Suikoden because the Kickstarter was a huge success and it really does look like a fantastic game so far. Anyways though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to hit the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you want to support the channel on Patreon, that would be greatly appreciated. Peace out.